Okay, perfect. Okay, great. As I was just saying, as we go through, and I'm going to just click through and kind of present these as real world scenarios and use some of the programs as an example. But this is payment information, so this particular dashboard view is designed to give you a view of the cash flow and payments. And specifically, right now we're looking at fiscal year 2014, so this is our current fiscal year. You can always see what date range you're looking at or the scope of the data up here in this top area. And this is also where you can change the criteria. I'll come back to that in just a second. Actually, you know what? I'm logged in with the wrong user here. I'm going to log out and then log back in as a user that will more mirror what you would see. So we're going to focus on the dashboard today first. There is also this visualizer tool, but I think that'll be covered at a later time. I think you can go in and kind of poke around and view that at your own leisure. But today I want to focus on the dashboard. And there's really there's two primary dashboard views, the payments, which I just mentioned, which we were looking at a moment ago, and approvals. And payments looks at the cash side and approvals looks at the approval amounts. Today's discussion is really going to focus on the payment amounts, the cash side of things. There's also some reports as well. Time permitting, we might explore some of those today as well. But right now I want to start with the payments dashboard. So to get to this, you can either navigate from this main navigation up here that's always available. So this reflects the site architecture. So there's the dashboard, and then under the dashboard is the payments dashboard. Under that are a couple different views, quarterly and monthly. Same thing with approvals, quarterly and monthly, and then the reports. And then you'll also be able to always see where you are anywhere in GivingData by looking up here. This is actually going to be a breadcrumb you'll see as we click around a little bit later. This will help orient you wherever you are at any time within the application. Right now we're at the root level, so there's not a lot to see. Anywhere in GivingData, you'll also see this area which shows you what you're looking at, essentially the scope of the data or the criteria. So this is telling us that we're looking at 2014 payments. We're looking at all funds and program areas, and we're looking at all staff. You can always mouse over this and see this change criteria option. And then if you click, which I'll do right now, it will allow you to switch the criteria. So you can change the time span here. You could look at a different year. You could look at multiple years. I'm going to leave it at 2014 right now, but you can change it. You can also view specific dates. If you don't want to look at years, you can actually look at calendar days and change the scope to do that. For simplicity's sake, we'll stick with just the fiscal year view right now. But you'll notice this maps to your fiscal year, which runs April 1st to the end of March. You can also filter by staff person. So if you'd like to just see a view of one or more staff person or people, you can just check or uncheck each of these boxes. And then so this view, if I hit submit, would just filter out Marion and Addie's grants from this view. And there's also the stages, which will probably become a little bit more clear as we go through this, but we have different stages in the approval process, which you'll see over here on the left. So going from pre-pipeline all the way through to paid, you can filter out any of these stages as well that you'd like to from your view. So, and that's a consistent format throughout GivingData. This is always the area that you'll be able to go to. If there's criteria to change, this is where you would be doing it. So the main dashboard view, this is really giving us the 30,000-foot view of the entire, across the whole foundation. And we're viewing by the fund and program area codes in gifts. I'm going to stick with this view for now, but just so you know, there's any code that's in gifts, you can actually, you can get different views based on the other codes in gifts as well. And what that would do is just change what you see in this lower table. Right now we're breaking it out by fund and then the program areas beneath the funds. But this is where you would be able to change which code tables and gifts you're referencing. But let's stick with fund and program area for now. So there's really two parts to this this view. The first is the budget summary view, which shows us where all the payments are in any of the stages. So from top to bottom, we go from this pre-pipeline stage, which is just a very early stage thinking stage, where this is actually data that's not even in gifts yet. This is data that's stored in GivingData. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But these are essentially projections for grants that either you're thinking about as a program person, you think you might make a grant, later on down the road, but you're not ready to yet put it into gifts. So these are those dollars there. And again, these are payment projections. Pending are any grants that are in gifts that are in a pending stage or have a pending status, so not yet approved. Contingent would be contingent payments in gifts, and scheduled would be scheduled payments in gifts. And I think that in terms of the difference, that's you all presumably have a contingent payments or payments that you're probably waiting for a report or input from the grantee before scheduling the payment. And then paid would be any payments that have already been made during this 2014 fiscal year. So all of these stages, if you add them up, are giving you a full picture of either a combination of what you've paid to date, what's scheduled, what's contingent, what's pending, and what's pre-pipeline, with the goal of giving you a complete picture of a complete financial picture of your grant making for the current fiscal year. Let me take a breath here and pause and see if anyone has any questions or clarifying points they'd like to ask. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. The pending amount, how is that calculated? Is because there are no payments associated with a pending grant in gifts. So are you taking the full pending grant amount? Is that is that how that is calculated?
Yeah, great question. And this actually, the answer will apply to the pre-pipeline grants as well, because you're right. These are not records that have actual payment records associated with them yet. So it's a calculation currently based on the term of the grant or the amount requested, I think. I'm trying to remember if it's requested or recommended. And divided by the term. So here's a good example. Down here, this request record has a term of 24 months, so that's a two-year grant. And it's 86,509. So what we're doing here is taking, it's a requested amount there, you can see. So we're saying the first payment we anticipate, because it's not approved yet, would be for half of the amount because it's a two-year grant. So the first payment, we just say, okay, 50% of the requested amount is this year, the other 50% would be next year.
Okay, and is that the standard calculation you're using? For instance, so if it's 1 year, you're assuming the full grant amount will be payable in the first year, and if it's 2 years, it's 50-50, and if it's 3 years, you split it by 3. Is that what you're doing?
That's what we're doing now. That's okay. Correct. Now, if we need to be more specific, because sometimes you'll want to say, do 60% of the payments the first year and 40% the second year. There's a couple ways we could approach it. One would be to either start tracking payments in gifts and be very explicit about it, or have another means of capturing that split, over multiple years.
So you can change the formula.
Yeah, it could be any formula that we come up with, as long as we can build a rule around it to say, okay, for all grants or for all grants of this type, apply this rule.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I think just generally that's the kind of thing where this is going to be an iterative process. So that kind of input is, I think, tremendously helpful to get, so we can think about what the next phase might look like. Was somebody else going to say something? Okay, thought I heard somebody. Sorry. Any other questions just on the payment projections and how that works? It's the same with the pre-pipeline grants as well. Just applying that rule, essentially requested amount divided by the term. So the data in this table, again, this is giving you that full picture of all grants and really all payments for the current year. So if everything moves forward, so let's just say everything in pre-pipeline, everything that's pending, all these contingent and scheduled payments, if all of these things happen, this would put us at 133, almost 134 million for the year. Looking at that now against the budget, you can see the budget that's been set. There's still a balance of 144,308, 837. So even if everything goes forward, there's still a budget shortfall here. And we're looking at this, of course, across the entire, all funds and programs. But we'll be able to drill down and look at that in more detail at the program level here in just a second. So just real quickly with this table, the data is also reflected in this chart here. So you can see each stage is represented by a color, starting left to right, pre-pipeline, pending, contingent, scheduled, and then paid. And the budget appears on the chart as well as this blue shading in the back. So this is really the target number, and this shows you the progress against that target. The chart can also, you can say, oh, okay, let's not look at pre-pipeline and pending. Let's just look at what we've, what's contingent, scheduled, and paid, essentially all the grants that are approved. And you can quickly do that kind of view just with the chart. You can also download this chart if you wanted to drop it into a PowerPoint or something like that. There's a couple different formats that you can download the chart as. And I'll also mention, just as you can hide the stages here in the chart, you can also do that in the criteria area. So maybe you don't want to see the pre-pipeline and pending. If you just remove those here in the criteria window and then submit and update the page, now you can see the only stages are the ones that are contingent, scheduled, or paid. It's just hidden those other stages from the view. And let me just also, sorry, one other filter I failed to mention. You can also filter by organization. So I'll just pick one randomly here. If you just want to see, or actually one or more organizations, so you can just start to type the organization name, and this would then filter the dashboard only showing these organizations. Not a very good example because neither of those seem to have any grants in play. But if they did, you would just see their payment amounts for those grantees. Any questions? Great. So down below, since we're looking in this fund and program area view, what we see then are numbers then split out by fund. So it's the same stages. It's just saying, okay, of this total up here, what's the split look like across the various funds at the endowment? So enterprise, healthy California, healthy communities, et cetera. And we see the totals now in each stage now for each fund. You can also on the fly do you can hide columns as well. So if you want to do a quick total of everything except for enterprise and unassigned, you could do that. And these totals here would also update to reflect that. So if we want to then say, okay, well, let's look at healthy communities. If we want to go in and see specifically the activity within this fund, we just click on the header, and now it takes us to a dashboard view that the format's exactly the same as what we saw on the previous page, except that we're now only looking at the Healthy Communities Fund. So you'll notice the criteria up here changed to Healthy Communities because we clicked into that fund. And now we see this next level down, the programs under that Healthy Communities Fund. So again, the format's exactly the same. The criteria options are the same. We're just looking at a smaller slice of the data. And by the same token, we can continue to drill down as deep as there are, as deep as the program codes go. So for instance, we can go into the North region and see the breakout by the regions within North region. And again, same format. And you can assign budgets at any level. So here, there's actually examples of budgets being set, down at this regional level for each of these regions. And you can continue again to click down. I'll go here into this one, and once we get to the lowest level, this is the end of the line. There's no sub-program code under Merced. You will not see that table below because there is no level of category beneath that. So let me just again pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions about kind of how I did that, or any questions just generally about what we're looking at? Okay, lovely. All right, so let me show you now that we're at this lowest level down. Any number, and I already did it earlier, I kind of showed my cards a little early, but any of these numbers are clickable. So if you want to see the payment records behind any number that shows up in the dashboard, you can simply click on it and see a list of those payments. So for instance, this is now saying there's 4 payments in a contingent stage in the Merced. I'm probably betraying my Boston geography here. Am I pronouncing that right? Merced? Merced?
Not quite. It's Merced.
Merced, thank you. If y'all have any questions about Boston area towns, I'm happy to help out. So here's showing now the list of payments in this region. The scheduled payment date shows the date when the payment is scheduled. And again, this is all coming straight out of gifts. Organization name, project title, awarded amount, payment number, term, staff person, and the fund and program area. This page, really this is almost like a glorified spreadsheet. You can click on the headings to sort and order on any of these pages. We call these list pages, where they essentially list out a list of payments or grants. You can also show or hide different columns. So the columns on screen here these are just the defaults. You can view, there's more data behind this. We just don't show everything because it would make for a very messy and wide table. But you can, if you'd like to see the request ID for that grant, maybe hide the awarded amount or payment number, you can pick and choose columns to display in this view at any time. You can also export this to Excel. So any of these list pages, you can just click export to Excel and it will download an XLS file. When you look at that file, it will actually give you all of the columns that are available in this list, not just the ones that you see on screen. So if you ever have a need to just take the data offline and do any work on your own with it, you can do that. There's a question here. Well, it was there and now it's disappeared. How do I get back to see what that question was? Do you want to just ask that question on the phone again? If you're there.
Hi, Alf. This is Ben. We're just hoping you could show how easy it is to get to an award document from within the grant page.
Sure. So anything, again, that's clickable, you can get down to the next level of detail. So if I want to view this grant record, this is giving me now all the data from the request record. So request ID, project title, requested amount, all of these things here. There's a project description, the coding, the way that it's coded in GIFs, any payments that have on this record. So you can see there's actually one that was paid in 2012, another one here that's contingent for later this year. That's that's how we got here. You can also view any documents that are attached to a request record. So these are all the documents here with this record. It's showing the top 10, so if there's more, this one actually has 12. You can see there's 12 documents, so make sure you look at the whole set, which you can do by just changing how many you want to see on screen. So from here, you can then click on any of these to see, to actually open the document. Now, you can't make edits to the document here. All you're going to be doing is when you click on it, we'll be downloading the document. We'll just give you a local copy of it. It's not something where you can work on it and then hit save and expect for it to be saved back to the file server, because it won't be. If you actually need to manage the documents, you still need to do that through GIFs. Also, if there are contact records associated with this grant, you can see them here. So it's kind of a little Rolodex feature almost, where you can see the contact information on that request or the grantee. And there's also a review stages tab here. This is obviously an approved grant, so this, the review process has already happened. But if we go back and look at, let's say, a pending grant, and we look at that project, I think we'll see, yeah. So here are the review stages. So this is all from Reviewer Connect, and this is just pulling the data in and displaying it here for viewing. So you don't have to go into GIFs anymore to see where things are in the review stage. Any questions on the request detail page? Additionally, you can view the grantee. Each grantee is clickable here, so you can either get to it from the request page, or you can get to the same page from back here by clicking on the organization name. And this will show you the full picture for this grantee. So not just the contact and profile information, but also total, some different aggregate data. So total awarded to this grantee, total paid to date, average size of a grant made to this grantee, and the date the last grant was awarded. And then you can also view the different codes here. So this is defaulting to fund and program area, but if you wanted to say view by age group, not a very good example because everything is the same age group. But any of the GIFs codes you could look at. And then on the organization page, there's also the full list of grants that have been made or grants that are pending. And there's actually a pre-pipeline one. You'll see this later. I added this. This is just a dummy record, but this shows you everything that's, all the grants that have been made, as well as ones that are either pending or in a pre-pipeline stage. And same with payments. So you can see pending pre-pipeline payments as well as the payments that have already been paid for this grantee. And then the contact records, the same as the request page. The contacts that are associated with this grantee. Any questions? Okay, great. Let's see, so we looked at the documents. I'm going to jump back out to the sort of root level again. Actually, let me just quickly show you. So you remember I mentioned the breadcrumb previously. This shows you your whole path to this particular organization record. So we came down through Healthy Communities, North Regions, MERCED, payments, and then the organization detail page. So you can always jump back, if we want to get back to the North Region dashboard, we can just click there and jump back. Same with Healthy Communities or what have you. So let me stick with, I'm just going to stick with North Region for a moment. There's a few other ways that you can use the dashboard. I mentioned the multi-year view before. So this is just looking at 2014, but if we want to look at 2 years together, we can just update the time span. And this will give us now a view of both 2014 and 2015, which is helpful, particularly at the end of the fiscal year when you're doing your budgeting, and you can see what's already been committed for the next year. This, again, gets back to the point where we were discussing the pre-pipeline and pending grants, where if they're multi-year grants, part of that one payment will show up the current year, and then you'll see payments in subsequent years for the multi-year grants as well. So that's what these dollars are here. This is, of course, looking at contingent and scheduled payments and gifts. So these are actual payment records that are contingent or scheduled for 2015. And of course, nothing's yet paid in 2015, so that's currently zeroed out. But it's the same format. We just see 2 years side by side. It gives you just a complete picture across this year and the next year. And you can really view as many years as you like. If you view more years, the chart will disappear. And there's less and less data, I would imagine, as well out there. But you can view many years. All right, and the other thing I wanted to mention, we've kind of looked at all of this through the dashboard, kind of drilling down and getting to the list pages and the organization records and the grant records. You can also jump straight to a grant record or an organization. So let's just say you have a particular request ID. You could just type that request ID into here. I don't have one off the top of my head, but you can also just start to type, and you'll see a list of organizations that have that keyword in it, a list of requests that have that keyword in it, as well as a list of contact records as well. So the more specific you get in your typing, the list will get smaller as you type more. And then you can just click and jump straight to, in this case, here's an organization record. Now, if I go back here to the payments dashboard, there's a couple other views you can get to for payments. If you'd like to see a quarterly view for the current year, you can click on that, and you can now see all the data, all the payment data broken out by quarter. So Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, starting here with April 1st for Q1. This shows you a chart with how much is in each stage. So the numbers in the table are also kind of shown again down below here. So you can see you have a lot of stuff paid in Q1 because that's the quarter we're in, but the future quarters aren't showing any payment amounts yet. But this gives you a good sense of distribution across the year for payments. And same with months. So you can actually, instead of viewing by quarters, you can view by month and you get the same data, just 12 bars instead of 4. These charts all have the same kind of capability, so if you want to hide stages from on the fly, you can always do that here as well. And same thing, it's downloadable as an image or PDF file. You can drop it into a into a slide deck. Any questions on the dashboard? Or Michelle, anything to add? Otherwise, I can move on to the pre-pipeline side of things.
I would just reinforce the point that you made earlier that GivingData is really an extension of GIFs, and it's a view. It has the ability to look at GIFs data in a different fashion and organize it in a different way. But it's really important to realize that you cannot write to the GIFs database from here. And that's, it was evident when Alf went through the documents, but if you need to make changes in GIFs, it still needs to happen in GIFs. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
All right.
So I actually had 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is when I was playing around with this earlier, and I was running a search where I got a list page, like you had mentioned before. I didn't download it to Excel. I just said I hit print this page, and I realized for whatever reason I had to go through my list and hit print this page every time. And I was wondering, is the only way to get a comprehensive page to print is to download it to Excel, or was I missing something?
Yeah, so there is an easier, you can print. I failed to mention that everything is designed to be printer friendly, but I guess not quite friendly enough for your scenario earlier, but there is a pretty quick solution to that. By default, when you come in, it's showing 10 records at a time. So I think it sounds like you were printing, going to the next page, printing, going to the next page. Is that right?
No, actually what I did is I hit the display and I picked, display all. But then when I went to print what I saw, it would only print 1 page.
Oh.
Like it was, like when I went up to there, but I didn't do the currently displayed, I did the other one. And I didn't get this, I couldn't find that, if that makes sense. I was hitting that one.
Okay.
And so then, see, for whatever reason, this extra view didn't pop up for me.
Well,
I couldn't get a single document.
Yeah, so this is your print driver on your computer. So it depends on what browser you're in. It might look different, but
okay.
This is using Google Chrome. I think Internet Explorer does it a little bit differently, but it still should give you the option to print all pages.
Yeah, well, I'll continue to play around with it, but I didn't know if I was missing something, so.
That should work. I'd say, let us know if you can't get that to work. We could maybe do a look at your screen and see what you're doing and try and troubleshoot.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. I'm so sorry. I can't recognize your voice.
It's fine.
But I'd love to
Jennifer.
follow up with you on that. Oh, thank you, Jen.
And my other question is, when you're in GIFs, you can run more complex searches using multiple coding choices, and I'm wondering, is there a way to do that here?
So no is the short answer.
Okay.
The visualizer has a little bit more capability in that area, but this is not a tool that's really an open-ended kind of reporting or querying tool where you can specify criteria in more of an ad hoc fashion. That's something we hope to add at some point, but today it's a little bit more, it's really more of a kind of a dashboard and interactive reporting tool is how I describe it, not one where you really go in and define a lot of query parameters. So GIFs is probably still your best bet for that kind of thing at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I want to talk just for a moment about the pre-pipeline concept and how that works, and a few things you may need to consider as we use this tool. So this is, and I think I'm going to have to log in with my other account. Yeah. So the pre-pipeline, so just excuse me for 1 second. The pre-pipeline tool is where you can, put that information, those grants in that are early consideration grants. They're not yet in gifts, but this gives you a way to do some scenario planning so you can see how pre-pipeline grant might impact your budget for this year, the next year, or what have you. So in terms of managing pre-pipeline data, to get it to show up here, there's a separate tool here, which is under the dashboard menu. The account I was logged in with didn't have access to it, but I think for those who need it, they should have it. If you don't, I think who should they talk to, Michelle, you or Megan?
It would probably be me. Yeah.
Okay. So the pre-pipeline tool, this is where you can see all the requests that have been entered into the tool so far. And they appear in this tool as well as being able to view them, over in the dashboard as well. The dashboard view, of course, is more to have that data kind of roll in and show up next to the other stages as well. But here is really the management tool for it. And again, it's still under dashboard, but down here at the bottom under pre-pipeline. So I'll go ahead and add a new one. So to add a new record, what we've done is just really pulled out a few fields that it's kind of the bare minimum that you need to enter in order to get a projection into the dashboard. Now, this is not going into gifts. This is data that stays solely in GivingData. So nothing you do here is going to influence anything in gifts. And that's really standard across the whole platform. We don't do any pushing data into gifts. But here we do have a little corner of the application where we do manage some data, and it's just the pre-pipeline request data. So I'll put in a title here. You can choose an organization name, and if you start to type, again, kind of like some of the other tools where if you start to type, it'll show you a list of grants that are a list of organizations that have these keywords in them. So you can then select the organization here. Now this is reading out of the grantee database from gifts. The reason it does that is so that you can actually connect this project to an existing grantee record if there is one. And that way you'll be able to see the projections. If you recall, when we were looking at that other organization earlier, we could see the pre-pipeline records that were associated with that grantee. So if you know the grantee, you could select it here. If you don't know it, you can just enter unknown. Maybe you just want to, set the money aside, but you don't know who the grantee might be. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. So after you've selected the organization or specified unknown, then put the amount in. So let's say it's a $100,000 grant. Anticipated approval date. So this would be the date that you expect it to be approved. So maybe it's probably somewhere off in the future. We'll say November. Here's where you'd enter the month. So 24 months. Select the program manager. This is probably not the right person, but you get the idea. Put a description in. This is the same as the project description. And then here's where you can assign it to the fund and program area codes. So from here, you would select this list and let's just say this is going to go under neighborhoods for 50% and learning. This would probably never happen, but actually that would probably go. Are we under Healthy California? Yeah. So let me get rid of learning. So you can, if you've added one accidentally, you can always just remove it by clicking the X. And then I'll do the other 50% for prevention. Once you've selected your program area codes, and it can also be just one, of course. I'm just showing an example with a 50-50 split. So 50% of the budget from neighborhoods, 50% from prevention. So when we save this, now it's been, added here. I can go back and edit it, of course, as well. And when I jump over to the dashboard, I'll refresh my pre-pipeline list, and you can see that record has been added. Now, it was a 24-month grant, so this year is showing the $50,000. And it shows the split over here as well. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, if we go into, if we have a grant that's split across different programs like this one was, we go in and we see there's $25,000 here. So this is really half of a half, meaning the payment for $25,000 is reflects the half of the grant because it's a 2-year grant, and also half then of the budget by program because it's 50% to neighborhoods, the other 50% is prevention. So whenever you see a grant that is in italics like this, that means that there is an allocation percentage split on that particular record. And since we're looking at this under the context of neighborhoods, that's the view that we're currently looking at, just neighborhoods. We're not looking at prevention here, just neighborhoods. It's only going to show us the anticipated payment amount as it applies to neighborhoods, not for the full grant amount. So if we look at this total requested amount, this shows us well, let's see if there's a better example actually. Well, not in this view, but this shows us the total amount requested. So it's $100,000, but because of the split 50-50, only 50% of it, or $50,000, actually applies to neighborhoods. If I look at the grant, not just in neighborhoods, but if I look, okay, so here's neighborhoods and prevention. If I look at the pre-pipeline grants under that, this will show us here's that project again that was added. Now, it's still italicized, but since we're looking at all of Healthy California, not just neighborhoods or not just prevention, the amount that I'm going to see is going to reflect the full amount of the grant because both of these programs are contained under Healthy California. So at this level, we see the full amount. So the total requested amount is going to equal the requested amount in this case. But if we're looking at it in the context of just one of these programs, you would only see the amount allocated to that program. Does that make sense to folks? That's a little bit of a nuanced concept, but I want to make sure that's kind of a clear concept.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. And this is something in GIFs that you can't really do if you want to report and see, okay, show me how much. I don't care. I mean, I care about the total requested amount, but I want to see how it affects my budget or just my program, and maybe not the entire grant is allocated to my program. This allows you to see that. You'll only see the relevant amount. But the important thing is just understand that if it's italicized, it means there's a split. And the way to see both the amount allocated to whatever program you might be looking at versus the full amount is to look for the total amount column here. It doesn't always display by default. Let me see if there's another example here. So yeah, positive school discipline and student social emotional health. We see the awarded amount and the payment amount. And if we look at the total awarded amount or the total payment amount, if there's an assignment that's not outside of, if it's outside of this one, so here schools 66%, this total awarded amount versus awarded amount, the awarded amount is going to be 66.7% or 2/3 of the total awarded amount. You can see both numbers here. But the calculation, as it's reflected in the total, is looking at the awarded amount, which is taking into account the allocation. Any additional questions on that? Great. So let me just show you now one last thing with regard to the pre-pipeline. Since the pre-pipeline data is in GivingData and everything else is in gifts, when something moves from pre-pipeline to pending, let's say, which is a likely scenario, you'll have to remove that pre-pipeline record once it's been put into the pending stage in gifts. So an example of how you could see that, here we are again, and Mary said, if you click here and you see, oh, okay, here's this grant that we entered a while ago as a projection, and if I jump over to the pending, I see the same grant. Now, these are actually two different records. One of them is in gifts, of course, that's the pending one, and one of them is in GivingData. So there's a double counting situation here that would be a problem in terms of projections, because the same record is really showing up in two places. So one thing we could do, right now it's a manual process. There are two separate systems. We don't have an explicit connection between that GivingData pre-pipeline record and the gifts pending record. One suggestion that we've had in the past is to have like a little tickler that goes out and looks for suspect records, maybe based on the organization name or the project title, to say, hey, you might have this grant showing up in two places and you'll need to delete the pre-pipeline one. But right now it is a manual process, so it's just something to be aware of. And of course, the way to address that would be to delete it from the pre-pipeline. So I want to do a quick time check. We're about 5 minutes from time, and you guys are probably getting hungry for lunch. But unless there's other things we'd like to cover, Michelle, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to mention before we move on to some Q&A.
No, I think this is a good time to open up for Q&A. Focus tends to diminish as people get hungrier, so I think it's important for us to hit it before people start to starve.
Can you show, this is Jennifer again, can you show us a little bit in the visualizer section?
Sure. So the visualizer, the dashboard is really all about process, like the grant making process. The visualizer is really looking at what's been approved, and so we have a number of different ways that we can kind of view this data. I won't be able to spend a lot of time showing you all of them, but they essentially break down into 4 different groups. One is we call allocations, which is just looking at lump sums of grants. Trends is looking at grants over time, so you get totals for year-to-year grants. Hierarchies is showing you some sort of hierarchies based on your coding scheme and gifts. And then maps is plotting grant data on a map based on the grantee location. Not population served, but the grantee location. I'm going to show you trends because it kind of covers allocations as well. So if you'd like to look at, over the past few years, how you've been funding in a certain area, this will show you, the default kind of shows you everything. So looking across all of your fund and program areas. And it's showing us the top level funds. So it mirrors that whole drill down concept that we had in the dashboard as well. So If we want to go in and look at healthy communities, we can click on that, and we can now see just the data that's specific to healthy communities. So each drill down here kind of gets you into the data a little bit deeper, very similar to what we did in the dashboard. And it shows you the allocations and breakout by each of the subcodes and whatever you're looking at. So here we are in North Region again, and here are the different regions, and they're all reflected here on the map as well. In terms of the totals, this tells you, okay, Arvin Lamont, over 3 years, we gave a total of over 6 million, which represented 9% of all of our giving under the North Region, 37 grants with an average grant size of 170,000. If we wanted to see those grants, we could just click on this little document icon there and see a list of those grants. And again, this is the same format that you saw on the other page, where you can export to Excel or print, sort, select columns, etc. So this is kind of nice for getting the a picture of what's come before. These are all for approved grants. So you can view by grant size. You can also view by payment amount. So the payments will show you cash out the door, whereas the grant size will show you amounts approved in each year. And then I'll jump over to, I'll show you, show you allocations as well. I'm not going to have a lot of time because we are running out here, but this is just showing you everything lumped together. So this is 3 years worth of grants approved. I can change that to, just view 1 year. So if we want to look at 2013, you can also change which code you'd like to look at. So instead of fund and program area, maybe you want to look at, age group. And so this gives you a breakdown by age group. And you can drill down, although I don't think there's another level beneath this. So if you get down, there's no subcodes underneath that. This is going to show you actually all of the grants made. It gets a little bit unwieldy because there's so many of them, but you can see now each slice in the view is an individual grant. Down here, this is not particularly useful unless you mouse over. You can see what the amounts are, but they're so small. So the size of the slice represents the size of the grant. And let me quickly, you can play around with this. I think there's a few concepts to understand, but once you understand that, it's fairly consistent from visual to visual. The cluster map is going to plot all of the grants made on a map. So again, these locations are grantee locations, and it defaults to California. But we can zoom out and look nationwide or even further if you're doing much in the way of international grant making, which not a surprise, you're not. But you can see you have grantees in other parts of the country as well. Let me just drill down. So maybe we want to just look at, children 5 to 12, just to get this a little bit more manageable in terms of scale. So the size of the circle represents the size of the grant. So bigger circles, bigger grants. And if we even zoom in, you can start to see at a neighborhood level as well. And this might not be relevant in a lot of scenarios. It's more relevant if you're doing a lot of place-based funding, but it may be if you look statewide for you all. But even at the city level, if we go into San Francisco here, you can actually see, at the street level where these grantees are located. And if you can also mouse over and click and see who the grant was made to, what the project was, you can click on it here and see the request detail page. So this might be, another sort of meeting that we discuss the visualizer in more detail, but that's kind of the quick 5-minute overview for you.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Michelle. Can I ask a question about this map view?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Is there any plan to link it to the geographical area code served?
Is that a code
Or
you all have available?
Yeah.
So you could, okay.
Can we
well,
choose that or?
Yeah, so we have to, let's see, so where is that here? So if we select this geographical area served, this will give us a breakdown. Now it'll plot it on the map, but not necessarily in the place where the service is being delivered. It's still going to show you the grantee location. But that said, what it does do is actually, if we jump over and look at, say, let's look at this view again. This will show us the geographical area served, not on a map, but it will show, the labels and the amounts. So this is probably actually a more useful view. What would be really neat and something that we would need to, this is a custom code that you all created in GIFs. I mean, it's a real code, but all these values are custom. So our system is not smart enough to say, oh, well, what does California mean? It's also right next to, Del Norte.
Right. That makes sense.
But it can be done as long as we could map these values to an actual, geography that's going to make sense to render on a map like this. We also have this region map, which shows a state by, well, country by country, but really for you all, you're going to care more about state by state view. But again, it's showing you grantee location, but something similar like this could be used for geographical area served as well.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. Well, Michelle, anything else?
I think that pretty much covers it. I know the analysts have been using this a little bit, so they, obviously had some pretty specific questions, which is great. I guess if you guys are good, then we can go ahead and close up the training. Alf, do you want to mention if they have technical issues? The link at the bottom of the GivingData screen to contact you, or? So,
yeah, I would mention it if I had the complete answer to that question, but I think we can kind of figure it out on the call. We had talked about a way to capture input from folks, this first group of users, whether it's a bug that you find or something in the data that doesn't look quite right. We have this anywhere in GivingData. Here in the footer, there's this submit a support request link. Just before this meeting, we had some talk of having this link. Right now it goes to a Google form that we have. It's really more designed for technical support issues. We could use this, but we also talked about using an internal resource, like maybe something in SharePoint that you all have to manage feedback. Ben, I don't know if you're still on the call.
Yes. So we're going to just ask everybody if you have any questions related to GivingData, go ahead and send that over to me. Send that in an email to me, and we'll triage the requests as they come in. So anything Jose and I can help with, we'll do, and then we'll involve Michelle or Alf as necessary. So thank you, guys.
Okay. I mean, we could also update this link to be, an email to either an email address or to a, like a hosted list or something that you have. So just so you know, Ben, this can really be a link to anything, including an email address.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Great. Well, thanks everyone for your time today. I hope this was helpful. And Michelle, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
No, just thanks everybody. Thanks Alf for taking the lead on this. I think it was really valuable. And for analysts out there, if you have program staff that is unable to attend the training next week, if you feel free to take your program staff through, any of these screens as you deem necessary, so feel free to do that. I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.